Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Science of Golf Performance. My name is Tyler, and with me is...
I'm Alex.
And I'm Chris.
And today we're going to talk about whether or not it's appropriate for juniors to be lifting weights.
Nope, definitely not. Stop. Cut. No more. Can't talk about it.
Yes, that seems to be the misconception, I guess, is I oversee the junior program here at Par for Success, and what happens very so often is parents bring their child in and they complete their first initial assessment and they come straight to me and they ask me right away is my son or daughter going to be lifting weights? And my first answer to them is, well, first we're going to check and see where they are developmentally. Have they hit puberty yet? Where are they with their stages of training? And then eventually, yes, they will be lifting weights. All the juniors who train with us here and as well train online, they do actually strength train with an overload with dumbbells, kettlebells, weight plates. And yeah, we do believe that juniors should be lifting weights, even though it can sometimes be considered a myth, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely a myth that's actually been debunked. And we know that we have a lot of very young pre-pubescent kids here that do strength training and resistance training. Now, that doesn't mean we're putting a heavy barbell on a 6-year-old's back. But they are going through movements and learning the movements so that later on for long-term development, they are able to strength train appropriately, and it's going to help them in the long run.
Yeah, I think I always explain it. I had this conversation with a junior parent the other day, and it was, if you're prepubescent, really the goal is we're teaching them how to squat, how to hinge, how to press, how to pull, how to do all these things in a fundamental manner where they are proficient, they do them well. They kind of can do the movements, and they don't have the hormones yet, so you're not going to build tons of muscle because they don't have the testosterone, the growth hormone, that sort of a thing. But you can create some very well-moving athlete, explosive, they understand jump mechanics, landing mechanics, all these fundamental athletic patterns, and then they're going to hit puberty. And then they get awkward, especially the boys, they turn to like baby giraffes, like they never walked before. And I find sometimes you got to retrain. Like one of our best athletes prepubescent had like an amazing dad, like never really had to coach him at all. He hit puberty and the kid that looked like he had never touched a barbell ever before in his life, right? But then he kind of gets to that awkward stage, and then now he's a beast because he had all that fundamental groundwork like laid prior. Whereas if you wait until high school, or for some kids it's not sophomore, junior year till like the puberty really hits, like you're late. Now you have to start with the fundamentals instead of just boom, moving on to the next stage.
Right. It's almost the most important time, I think, in a child's career is to, when they're in that puberty stage, is to have the background and knowledge of how to correctly move and squat and hinge. And because in that puberty stage, the hormones are high, and this is when recovery is the highest, like in your life. And if you're soaking up, it's like legal steroids for kids. Like they're soaking up those gains. This is we're going to gain the most strength in the shortest amount of time. It's going to be ingrained in their bodies the most, proficiently. And so, yeah, it's almost the opposite of dangerous. Like this is the time where it should be consistent training, and you should be reaping the benefits of it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it comes from my thought process is I think of a movement quality versus a movement quantity. And that's where with that initial junior athlete coming in, you want that movement quality. And before puberty is that time to be developing that foundation, because that's going to set them up for a large base to be able to train off of. And eventually I would assume a junior athlete's ultimate goal would be to become a college athlete someday. And to be able to get to that point there, you have to start with that base. And kind of like Chris and Alex mentioned, if you skip that point, and you don't hit it till that puberty or just even after puberty, you have to start from so far back. And it almost causes you to have to backtrack in a way.
Yeah. Well, and I think and then it's just good for development in general, but I think if you're looking at the competitive landscape of golf, like kids are starting at 10, 11, 12. We typically don't start before 10 unless somebody is, a 9-year-old who developmentally is like 12 or 11. But the reason prior to that, they should be playing other sports. We're encouraging them to climb trees, play tag, do the kids stuff. But then once you hit that 10 to 12, start. You're not lifting. We say you're working out. It's not. You're not lifting tons of people say, they're gonna lift weights, heavy weights, and no, they're not heavy per se in terms of how we would necessarily lift weights, but they're going to be challenging. They're going to be tired when they leave. But they're obviously, you want it under the supervision of an expert coach who knows what they're doing, that there's an actual plan. It's not just throwing random crap at them and saying, get sweaty and tired over the next hour while your mom and dad are paying me, and I'll see you later. So there is a plan to it, and it's very structured, and if done correctly, it can be massively beneficial.
Right. And then I think you get into, the junior who is starting to play a lot. They've decided that golf is their sport, and the parents are encouraging them to play year round and getting them into tournaments all over the place. Now it becomes even more of a necessity to make sure they're strength training appropriately year round. They're swinging so much at this point that we need to make sure that they're strong enough to control it. A lot of the juniors here are hypermobile, a lot of the girls especially, and we need to make sure that we use strength training as a tool to combat that, but make sure that they're not at high risk for injuries.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where kind of talk about layering. At first, you start with your junior athlete, you develop that foundation, those movement patterns. And from there, that's where Alex is kind of talking about now is you think about durability of an athlete. Hey, if you have that foundational base, you have your movement patterns on lockdown, and you're strong throughout those movement patterns, you're going to be a lot more durable come your later years in high school once you become that sophomore, junior, senior, and hit the important time when it comes to college recruiting to where you can spend more time on the golf course and less time on the PT table.
Yeah. Well, I think the way I look at it is we'll use roughly ages. Obviously, this is different based on development, but let's say that 10 to 12 prepubescent. That's just super important just to lay a foundation. If you want your junior to be the best possible athlete down the road, they need to be quote unquote lifting weights. They need to be in a long-term development program. I think then you get to the pubescent, let's say 13, 14, maybe to 15 on the boys' side. They're a little bit later. It's going to help minimize the awkwardness of movement. It's going to help, again, continue as they're getting to being out of puberty and ready to really put on muscle. And you're continuing to set that foundation and continuing to help their development. Once they're out of puberty, let's just say 15, basically high school, sophomore on, if you're not weight training throughout the entire year, you are saying, I want to get hurt. Your chances of getting hurt with the amount of junior golfers play these days is insane. The chances are so, it's guaranteed. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when are you going to get hurt. And some people watching this, I'm 18, I played, I never got hurt. Well, if you're playing college, it's probably coming. It's just, right. We've worked with enough golfers, you're going to hit a tuft of love grass and your wrist is going to snap, your tendon is going to go, or people who are just totally healthy, if you're not taking care of yourself and giving yourself every possible opportunity to stay healthy, not to mention the performance benefits that you're going to gain by lifting. I think you're just leaving a ton on the table.
Yeah, I think from what I see specifically with some of the juniors here is what can be so frustrating is when we take them through an entire cycle of training, entire 12 to 13 week cycle of training, and they finish and they absolutely blew it up on their post-test. They gained 7 miles an hour on club head speed, and they wrap it up and say, that's it, that's good. I'm right where I need to be getting into the season. And it's just you want to pull your hair out. And then, yeah, exactly. You see them back 3-4 months later, and they're seeing Chris or Bobby, and they're lying on the PT table.
They're hurt, and their speed is back to where it was.
Yeah. And that is just from where we are at, it just can be quite frustrating, actually, because that kind of just goes back to what Chris is saying. That's where we know what we're doing. We are professionals. So if you come to us and you say you're playing 4 to 5 days a week and you're playing a full round each day, it's okay, we know exactly how to back off training and how to complement that. So that way we can avoid that backtracking when you're getting injured
later.
You
get to the fall, you're not injured, and you not only have the 7 that you gained in the spring or the off season, but you probably have another 3 to 4.
Yeah. I hope those points really kind of make people less scared of the weight training and the strength training for their kids, and the benefits outweigh the bad parts. You know what I'm trying to say. I can't spit words out right now, but
benefits
outweigh the risk reward. Yeah, there we go. Words are hard. But I hope that really kind of is a lot of parents kind of take that into consideration when introducing their kid to a long golf season.
Yeah.
I think from a parent's point of view is talking about injury and risk of injury. If you want what's best for your child, you'll help promote this and let them let your child know or educate them on exactly what we're saying right now is that if you want your child to be a college athlete and you want them to go on and have success and be free of injury or free of risk of injury, you invest in that year-round training program and invest in having a professional take your child through a long-term development plan, because that is exactly what is going to get them there. And that's what's going to keep them on the course longer and keep them towards achieving their goals.
Yeah. And it's not that we're going to totally eliminate the risk of injury, but what it does do is it gives them a chance that if they do have a tweak in their back, or the likelihood that they're going to be out for a prolonged period of time is definitely decreased with the stronger, more trained an athlete is. So.
Yeah. So I hope this educated everybody really well on juniors and the long-term development idea. If you like the video, please definitely go ahead, hit that like button, and be sure to share it with all your friends. And stay tuned in for the next one.